Well, welcome back to the 360 Sports Network Road to the Final Four podcast series, where we break down each and every conference tournament on the way to the big dance. We look at who will get the automatic bid, who the at-large teams might be, and who's going to be left dancing by themselves. Because before we can fill that field of 68, we must first get through the conference championships. I'm James, the Value Man Dotson. With me tonight, Alex, the Saint Delaverson, and Greg, the Mad Scientist Fichero. Gentlemen, how are we doing here with March Madness?
This is my time of the season. Insane.
I'm not really happy. I'm more depressed because this is going to be the last ever true Big East tournament. So I'm going to appreciate it for what it is, but I'm also sad to see it go.
Yeah, you said it right there. The last of the best of the rest. Couple have already shipped off, and there will be a Big East tournament next year. It'll be more known probably as the Catholic 7 tournament at this point, but that's something to look about in the future. We will cherish this last Madison Square Garden true Big East tournament, and let's get it right away going with the fact that the Big East always has the most teams in the tournament because they are probably top to bottom the best conference year in, year out. We are expecting 8 teams to make it out of the Big East, but that 8th team will probably be the winner of the 8-9 matchup, Providence and Cincinnati. What do you have on them, Greg?
Well, looking at this, I think the Providence Friars, have the upper hand in this whole thing. It's basically a play into the Big East tournament, the way I'm looking at this here. This team had a terrible start to the conference season, but they've won 7 of their past 9 games. And I believe that they will get that bid at large for the NCAA tournament, that at-large bid. Cincinnati, the Bearcats, they've lost 6 of their last 9 games. They're kind of lackluster. There's no pop and sizzle in their step. And it's going to be a dangerous matchup with Providence, but I really believe that Providence is going to pull this one off.
Yeah, I agree. When it comes to tournaments, playoffs, and one thing we all know is what have you done for me lately? And Providence has been hot. Cincinnati has not been hot. So I just think logically you should go with Providence, and they can make a run. We've seen a lot of times in a lot of these tournaments, conference tournaments, even the NCAA tournament, it's all about getting hot at the right time. If Providence can get through Cincinnati, there's no reason to think they can't get through Georgetown because of the way they're playing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Cincinnati, the one thing they have for them is Sean Kilpatrick. He averages 17 points per game, shoots about 30% from beyond the arc. He's their main guy. If he's on his game, Cincinnati can easily win that game. However, we forget about Providence has a guy even better, junior Bryce Cotton. He actually puts up 19, 20 points a game. He's one of the highest scorers in the entire conference, and not many people know about him. I think that especially if they win their first game, they can put up a great matchup against Georgetown, and you might be hearing Bryce Cotton's name a bit more than we are right now.
You might be seeing an upset in the making here, too.
We have, and here's the thing. Any one of these teams that we are mentioning could easily make an entire run through the tournament. Connecticut made a run from a 9 seed not 2 or 3 years ago, and then ended up winning the entire NCAA tournament as a result as well. There's lots of parity. Anybody can win at any given moment, for sure. One of those teams that has a chance that we could see go far is a team that's made a lot of upsets this year, and that's Villanova. What do you know about them besides the fact that they've beat a top 5 team 3 times this year?
Well, you're talking about Villanova. They beat Louisville, they beat Marquette, they beat Syracuse, and yes, they beat Georgetown as well. I mean, they've lost to some major teams, so this is a team that, depending upon how the ball bounces and who controls the clock, Villanova is one of those clock control type teams. They're one of those teams that will slow the game down to make things difficult for everybody. That's been traditional Villanova basketball in general. So, if Villanova plays their game, there could be some upsets here.
Well, they played Pitt tough. And of course they always do play Pitt tough. So yeah, they definitely could win. I think though, in terms of getting towards Louisville, I don't really expect much of an upset there. Louisville has won 7 straight, And so right now they're technically even harder than Providence. So as far as Louisville, Kansas is the only team in the NCAA with more top 25 wins than Louisville, but still you don't really, for whatever reason, you're not hearing too much about that. So can Villanova win their first game? Yeah, definitely. I just think it's almost at the point where if I'm a Villanova fan, I really wouldn't expect much at this point, only because they have to go through, climb over a mountain to get past Louisville.
Well, it's almost like they played to the level of their opponent, because in the same week they take down number 5 Louisville and then number 3 Syracuse. The next week they lose to unranked Notre Dame and unranked Providence. Later on they lose to Cincinnati, Seton Hall, unranked teams. So they get the big wins, but they also have some bad losses, which will make seeding very interesting. I think they have enough to make the tournament. I really like Muftal Yaru, personally. He's one of the top rebounders that there are in the entire game of basketball. He's just a pure athlete, and I like it. I also like that they have a balanced offensive attack. There's no one you can really focus on. You can't shut down a main guy. You have 5 guys, who all average 9 points per game. Beyond those top 5, though, it starts to drop off, and that's where I think Villanova could run into some trouble. Moving forward, a team that we all love or we all hate. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish, they have the 6th seed in the tournament. They're right on the edge of a top 25. It seems like they've been around that way all year. Alex, what do you think about the Fighting Irish this year? Do they have any chance to make a bit of a splash and make some brackets a little bit angry?
Well, I definitely think they can. You all know I'm a big Pitt fan, and Notre Dame is one of 3 teams Pitt just can never seem to beat, followed by Marquette and Louisville. Yeah, I think they can make some noise. I think, obviously, they'll get into the tournament. But, again, who will they face? Eventually, they're going to have to face Marquette. And Marquette, they're one of my teams, too. I was thinking about winning this conference. So they can make some noise. But Marquette has won 4 straight, and that's 6 out of 7 also. So again, kind of how Villanova was. I don't expect them going far much in this tournament. Anything can happen, of course. I'm not saying upsets don't happen. I just kind of think, like Louisville, this tournament, they kind of have a ceiling. So I don't expect much from them, to be honest.
One thing about this Notre Dame team is that this is a team that has extremely good fundamentals. There are very few teams out there with better fundamentals than the Notre Dame Fighting Irish right now. They also have a guy by the name of Jack Cooley, who leads the conference with 10.6 rebounds per game. And this team is second in the nation with an average of 17.5 assists per game. So this is a team that nobody can take lightly. They're fundamentally sound. They play physical basketball. And these guys can score basically anywhere on the floor. And if you're not on your A game, the Fighting Irish can basically take advantage of you. So this is a team that can go far if they stick to their fundamentals and play fundamentally sound basketball.
They have a lot of role players on their team, Greg. I mean, you mentioned Cooley, who's a double-double, 13 points, 10 rebounds every time he goes out there. They actually have 7 guys who average 7 points or more per game. They have lots of depth in their bench that go out there and score points. So it's going to be interesting because they still rely a bit too much on the 3 for my liking. And I could think that could spell trouble down the stretch. But they're a solid team. They do have an inside presence. Notre Dame, yeah, I can see them. It's going to be a fun Marquette-Notre Dame matchup. I'll just put it that way.
Remember that when West Virginia was in the Big East and how they relied on the 3, and it got them pretty far, too.
Yep, well, if you live by it, you could live big. But sometimes you just die by it. And another team that, sometimes they rely a little too much on that outside shot is the 5 seed, the Syracuse Orange. They're the top 20 team all year. They love that 2-3 defense, which is really a very... It's very helpful when it comes to tournament play. However, this team is a little bit in the dumps right now. They lost 4 out of their last 5 games. Now, those 4 losses came all against top 25 opponents. Is that just because they had tough opponents, or are we seeing a trend here, Greg?
You know what? This is a team that I think you could kind of look at them as kind of schizophrenic. I really don't know if this team really knows how good or how bad they really are. They lose to Georgetown. Marked 4 of the past 5 games. They've really struggled to score as of late. Unless they get their shooting numbers up, this team could be in line for an early exit in the postseason and possibly an early exit in the big dance as well.
I mean, they have 4 prolific scorers. C.J. Fair, 14.5 points per game. Brandon Trice, 14 per game. Sutherland, 13.5. Michael Carter-Williams, 12.5. But after that, they don't have a 5th scorer. They have to try to rely on Rakeem Christmas, who only puts up 5.5 per game. It's just not good enough. They need to be more balanced. They need to get that 5th scorer to put points on the board. Otherwise, I mean, they rely too much on that 2-3 defense to save them down the stretch, and teams have started to figure it out. The Jim Boeheim defense isn't what it used to be.
No, it's
not.
not.
And they have lost 4 of the last 5, with their lone victory being over last place DePaul. So if I'm an Orange fan, I don't find that to be very encouraging. And like I was saying earlier, it's all about matchups. So if they beat USF or Seton Hall, and I think they will, they still got to go and play against number 4 Pitt, and they always struggle against Pitt. It's just not optimistic looking at the big picture for the Syracuse Orange.
Well, let's move on to the Pitt Panthers. They're a team that is very good at putting the ball in the hoop, and a lot of that is because of their assists. Nearly 17 per game. They're top 10 in the country in assists per game. They also put the ball in the hoop 48% of their shots. That's a top 15 average. They're very efficient when they play well. They've won 4 straight to end the season, which is very good for leading into the big dance and into the tournament. The one thing I notice about them is they do not have that one prolific scorer putting up 14, 15, 16 or more points per game. Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
You know what? I think in one way it is a good thing that they don't, because now they have to rely on the entire team concept, which is something that they haven't been able to do for quite a while. A couple of things so that are kind of going against Pitt right now is that they got that cool dreaded double bye. Pitt's 0-3 in the conference tournament when they're playing their first game on a Thursday, so something like that just doesn't sit well with when you take a look at history like this. But going back, and their senior guard Trey Woodall, I think, is going to be the trendsetter here, the guy that's going to kind of keep this team on pace.
Well,
what are your thoughts, Alex?
Is they do play to the level of the competition typically. And like I said before, I like the matchups here. They always seem to beat the Orange. Even if USF or Seton Hall could do them, I don't think that'd be a problem. But Pitt, they do have a lot of options to go around. I think it could be good if that they don't necessarily have one player to rely on in the Big East tournament. That actually seems to hurt them in the NCAA, not so much at the Madison Square Garden. But, they have Steven Adams, who's a big athletic 7-footer. His foot's been kind of bothering him. So a little less optimistic about him. Trey Ziegler's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle here after a promising start to conference play. I do think just for lone matchups, though, the University of Pittsburgh will get to the championship game, the Big East championship game. Do I think they'll win it? No. But I think Pitt's going to come out of the top half of the bracket and probably, knowing their luck, play Notre Dame. But I have to say Louisville here because I think they're just the more complete team in the conference. And I have Louisville coming out winning this tournament.
10 guys have seen consistent playing time this year for the Pitt Panthers. All 10 of them average 11 minutes or higher per game. The highest, Trey Woodall, only averages 28 minutes per game. They're very deep, and I think that's going to help them. If they didn't have a double bye, it'd be even more effective. But especially when you face some of these teams that only play 5 or 6 guys, Pitt can run an up-tempo offense against them. Or if they have to slow it down, they're able to. They've shown that they can do that when they play Syracuse. They are a very adaptable offense under Jamie Dixon. You can go inside to Adams and Zana. You can go outside with Woodall and Patterson. They can do it all, and I think that's why Pitt can be very effective. And, hey, they could actually make their first Final Four run. You never know.
It's a very balanced team. I mean, this team can go in many different directions, and I think it's kind of good that they don't have that one dominant scorer. These guys can take this thing into many different directions and adapt to any type of style that's out there. So it's a very exciting thing. Plus, Woodall, and I believe one other, is from New York City. So playing in Madison Square Garden is basically like playing at home.
They need to kind of catch lightning in a bottle here if they ever want to make a Final Four run. They have the talent with Steven Adams. They do have a pretty good team. I'm hoping this is the year they kind of go under the radar and get into the Final Four. So Pitt has to play hot going into the tournament, and they have to, to me, it's all about Steven Adams. He's the best player on their team, the best recruit ever. Something different. If Pitt ever wants to make the Final Four, they got to do something a little different just to get over that hump.
Well, you made a good point. You got to be hot going into the tournament. They're hot right now going into the Big East tournament, winning 4 straight games. We'll see if that continues. Another team that has won 4 straight heading into the tournament, a team very similar in style to the Pitt Panthers, and that's the Marquette Golden Eagles. Nothing flashy. They just get the job done. No real big, huge names. I mean, there's no Dwayne Wades on the team this year. How do you look at Marquette, Alex? Do you think that Buzz Williams up there has another team that can contend for a title?
Oh, I think so. I watched them play against Pittsburgh. I like their team. I like just they have a great coach. I think, even though they're not the higher seed in the tournament, I think they can make a run. They're number 3. They have to play against Notre Dame. I just think Louisville is still, where their ceiling is going to end. So it's not so much, in my opinion, about Marquette not being able to do much damage. I just don't think they're really going to be able to get past Louisville. But you never know how Buzz Williams will get his team to play.
And I have to agree with Alex on this one. It all depends on where Marquette falls in this whole situation as to how far Pitt will advance. Marquette certainly has Pitt's number. This is a team that's got a lot of solid fundamentals, basically a no big-name type team itself. I mean, this team just scores, and this team just wins. Not very flashy, but a very solid fundamental type of team, very much like Notre Dame, and which is another team that gives Pitt problems as well. But look at Marquette. If they get past Louisville, yeah, I mean, this is a team that could probably win this whole thing. But I just don't see that happening because Louisville is pretty much all that plus soft walnuts.
What impresses me with Marquette is the fact that one day it's Vanderblue who will put up 20. The next day, Devontae Gardner. The next day, Junior Cadogan. You never know which guy is going to step up big. They all are consistent, but every game, one of them is going to be the big player who's going to come and absolutely shoot lights out. Whichever player that is, defenses can't key on that until sometimes it's just too late. If none of them step up, though, which has happened before, that's where Marquette has trouble. But I like Buzz Williams. I think that they could be easily the team to beat going through this tournament. Honestly, they're probably my pick to win it at this point. All right, the top 2 seeds, Louisville and Georgetown with Marquette, they all tied for the lead. Let's look at the number 2 seed now with Louisville. They got it by virtue of a couple losses to the wrong teams at the wrong time. Louisville, 26-5 overall. We all know about Peyton Siva. Tell us some more things that we might not know about for the Louisville Cardinal there, Greg.
Well, taking a look at the Louisville team, I mean, Peyton Siva's an all-or-nothing type of guy. I mean, when he's on, there's nobody better than him. And, of course, when he's off, well, there's nobody much colder either. He is an elite scorer. They also have Russ Smith out there, and they've got a terrific defender in Gorgie Jang. This guy he's like a wall out there. He's terrific. This is a squad, combined with their great defense and the numbers that they're putting up, I believe can win the entire Big East tournament and go very deep, be a Final Four team in the Big Dance as well.
Yeah, I agree. They're pretty sound all across. They're 46th in the nation in points per game, 40th in rebounds, 44th in assists. I mean, those aren't great, but it's pretty respectable, I would say. I guess one thing that bothers me, though, about Louisville, even though I think they're going to win it, is their field goal percentage. They're pretty much at the bottom. They're sitting at 102 out of all the teams. So that could be something that kind of bites them. But Rick Pitino, obviously the winner knows what he's doing. Louisville's number 8 in the country. They've beaten the most, I said this earlier, beaten the most top 25 teams in the country. I guess the theme of this team is they just find a way to do it. And they're a complete all-around, and I think there's no reason, as long as, Louisville doesn't fall asleep in a game or come out flat, which happens a lot in conference tournament play. I think Louisville has no reason to lose.
Well, for me, Peyton Siva is going to be the catalyst. If he plays his game, if he puts points on the board, they'll win. If he doesn't, they'll lose. 7 times this year, he scored 5 points or less. They lost in 4 of those games. It's that sort of thing that really scares me. He can go and put up 20 one night and then be held scoreless the next night. Usually the team picks him up around him, but too many times I've seen it this year where they haven't. Siva, once he gets off his game, Greg, you said it, they're as cold as ice, and that's where the Cardinals scares me, and that's why I'm hesitant to take them far in any tournament, because you never know. If your star player is that hot and cold, I don't know if I can trust them in my bracket.
Well, that puts a lot more pressure on Russ Smith and the rest of the team to really pick that up. I really don't see Siva going cold in the tournament. I really don't. But, strange things happen.
Well, let's talk more hot and cold. A team that was insanely hot going through January and February. The number 1 seed in the tournament, the Georgetown Hoyas, Hoya Saxa. They won 12 straight games through January and March, but then they lost to Villanova in the penultimate game of the year, but then bounced right back and absolutely destroyed Syracuse 61-39 in the season finale. What do you feel about Otto Porter there, Greg?
He's the team's most consistent player out there. I mean, this is a guy that plays suffocating defense, but he can also put up the big numbers as well. But what's interesting about this team, it's not so much their offensive numbers. It's basically that they can, suffocate any team that's out there and prevent any team from pretty much scoring points. So if Georgetown wins this, you're going to see some very low-scoring type games. You're not going to see the real high-scoring type game coming out of a Georgetown team.
You're right, Greg. That defense is absolutely suffocating. John Thompson knows what to do with those guys.
Oh, no doubt about it. But, once again, what's going to win the championship here? Is it going to be a suffocating defense, or is it going to be a well-balanced team?
I think we're in agreement that in looking through this bracket, we're going to have Pitt versus Marquette in the championship game. Who do you guys have as that winner, Greg?
Sadly, and I'm a Pitt alum, and I know E.J. Margetti's going to say, Greg, shame on you. But I have Marquette winning this one.
Well, I have
Alex?
Pitt versus Louisville, Jimmy. But like Greg, I'm going to have to go against my school, University of Pittsburgh, too. Louisville is just one of those teams Pitt really has a trouble with. But if Pitt can stay hot and they don't get plagued with turnovers or injuries or anything like that, it should be competitive. I think it can be a game that goes down to the wire. So I think Pitt can win. I just don't think Pitt will win because I still think Louisville is the most complete team in the Big East. I'm going to have to go with the Louisville Cardinals.
And you know what, I have to agree with you on this, that Pitt is not going to be the team that could actually win this. I mean, if they win it, it's great. I mean, everything is wonderful. But here's the big thing, especially if you're a Pitt fan and you're really following the Pitt Panthers. If they get this loss out of the way early, and they don't win the Big East, that gives them a little bit more incentive. This is a team that just needs that extra nudge to get past the Sweet 16.
They do, and I mean, all it takes is a little momentum at the right time, the right matchup, whether it be in the conference or the NCAA tournament. I mean, that's why, based on matchups, I actually have Georgetown and Louisville, 1 and 2 seeds, both losing in their first games in the Big East tournament. I think Providence can take down Georgetown. I think Villanova takes down Louisville. So anything is possible. I do have Marquette beating Pitt in the championship, but, that's what we love the game, especially when we have such parity this year. Anything is possible. Lots of upsets are going to be happening, and we're just going to sit back and enjoy the ride.
And what division and what college bracket and you get 8 teams going to the big dance.
Well, the only other one will be the Big Ten, which we will discuss in a future podcast very soon. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me, and thank you, the fans, for joining us for this edition of the 360 Sports Network Road to the Final Four. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at 3S Network, and keep tabs on our website, 360sportsnetwork.com, for all of your college basketball updates leading up to Selection Sunday, as we try to make your bracket be the very best that it can be. Thank you to the St. Alex Laverson and the mad scientist himself, Greg the Sharer. I'm James Dawson for 3SN. Have a good night and good luck in your bracket.